There is a meal you ate last week, one you have eaten 100 times before. And this time, halfway through, something in your body went quiet in a way that felt like refusal. Not nausea, not allergy. Something older than that. A signal beneath a signal, arriving without explanation from beneath the architecture of hunger itself. That withdrawal is not a dysfunction. That is the Arcturian recalibration already in motion. Your Lightbody's intake architecture is undergoing a frequency level reorganization that no macronutrient ratio, no elimination protocol, no functional medicine panel was designed to detect. In this transmission, you will understand why your changing relationship with food is not a willpower failure, not a discipline problem, not a hormonal irregularity, but a sovereign alignment event encoded into the current galactic phase. Come still. Receive this now. The body you inhabit is not a closed biological engine. It is a radiant intake field, a living antenna that does not only metabolize protein, fat, and carbohydrate. It metabolizes frequency. It metabolizes coherence. It metabolizes the invisible density carried inside the food itself. The scalar waves embedded in the soil it grew from, the light quotient of the water it absorbed, the dissonance accumulated inside every step of industrial processing. Your gut has always known this. Long before your mind was handed the language of nutrition, your enteric system, running on what sound healing lineages describe as a secondary neural field of approximately 100 million neurons, was already making decisions about what to receive and what to resist, often before the first bite was finished. Your fork thinks it leads. Your field decided before the plate was set. What you are experiencing right now, this season, is not a new food sensitivity. It is not leaky gut. It is not an aging metabolism, though those frameworks will be offered to you readily. What you are experiencing is a coherence upgrade. Your Lightbody's intake valve recalibrating to accept a higher density of biophotonic information from your food sources, and simultaneously beginning to reject the frequency interference that once passed through the system unnoticed. Foods you tolerated for years are now triggering what we might call frequency inversion responses. Your field identifying a mismatch between the density of what is entering and the new threshold your morphogenetic field has established since the last galactic transit. The refusal you felt halfway through that plate was not your stomach. It was your field speaking the only language it has. Type 333 below if your body has been telling you things about food that no test has confirmed. Let that number move through your fingertips as the Arcturian Trinity alignment code. The signal that your physical, energetic, and soul architectures are receiving this transmission simultaneously. Acknowledge what you already know. The written protocol anchored in the description below was built specifically for this transitional phase. A field companion designed to translate the frequency shifts you are feeling into daily intake choices your body can work with. Not a diet, not a cleanse. A coherence map for what your system is already moving toward on its own. Now, the science of your transformation, framed not as clinical mechanism, but as the symbolic architecture this transmission works within. Your gut-brain axis is not a metaphor. The vagus nerve, that extraordinary wandering bridge between your enteric field and your neural command center, carries bidirectional signals that govern what your nervous system will allow your body to absorb. When that vagal tone is low, when the body is operating inside chronic sympathetic activation, What the third-dimensional frameworks name simply as stress, the intake valve closes. Not partially, functionally. Your body enters a conservation state, and the epigenetic unlock that would otherwise occur during nourishment is suppressed at the very gate where it would have happened. This is why you can eat the cleanest food available and still feel empty in a way that more food does not fill. This is why the supplements work for a season and then stop. This is why the protocol delivers results for a month, and then the body quietly refuses the arrangement. The field was not matching the intake. The receiver was not yet tuned to the signal the food was trying to carry. Mirrored in the observation that approximately 95% of the body's serotonin production is linked to gut function. The enteric field is not merely digestive. It is emotional. It is informational. It is what the Arcturian cosmological tradition frames as the solar plexus gateway, the third seal in the light body's ascending intake architecture, where physical nourishment and stellar frequency are processed simultaneously. When this gateway is under duress from electromagnetic interference, from the scalar dissonance embedded in ultra-processed food, from the neural residue of screens consumed without interval, the gateway narrows, and hunger becomes noise instead of signal. You eat and cannot locate the satisfaction that food once delivered reliably, because the channel through which that satisfaction traveled has been reduced to a frequency too low to carry the full transmission. The Schumann resonance baseline of 7.83 Hertz is what this transmission works within as the planetary coherence anchor, the Earth's own electromagnetic pulse, which your body was calibrated to move alongside since before your first breath. Modern urban existence has introduced a near-constant low-frequency interference pattern between your field and that baseline. From the devices in your hands, the towers lining your streets, the fluorescent fields of commercial spaces you walk through without thinking twice. Your intake choices are not only responding to your body's biochemistry, they are responding to that interference layer. Foods that once felt neutral now carry a dissonance signature your recalibrating field can no longer process silently. The system has grown too clear to accept the static it once managed without complaint. This is a meditative transmission for those walking their path alongside, not instead of the care they have already chosen, offered not as a replacement for clinical guidance, but as a contemplative companion to whatever healing work you are already doing in the world. And yet, in the cosmology this transmission works within, there is another layer beneath the interference pattern, one that the standard frameworks do not reach. What metaphysical traditions have long described as the 97% of so-called dormant DNA, the vast, silent instruction set that conventional biology acknowledges but is not yet fully mapped. This is where the deeper recalibration is occurring, not at the level of the food itself, at the level of what the food is being asked to carry. Your light body, in the current galactic window, is activating dormant receiver sites that were not operational during earlier phases of your life. And those sites require a different quality of input, not more volume, different frequency. The same way a newly activated radio antenna does not need a stronger signal. It needs a cleaner one. Now I want to speak to something that will cost me nothing to say and may cost you everything to hear if you are not ready. And something I suspect you have never heard said plainly in this way to you. You have tried. You have tried more carefully than anyone around you knows. You have done the elimination diets, The ones where you removed gluten, then dairy, then nightshades, then histamine-containing foods, one at a time, in good faith, tracking every variable with a precision that bordered on devotion. You recorded everything. You waited the required weeks. You reintroduced with care. And you sat with the incomplete results in silence, because there was no one around you who had the language for what you were experiencing or the patience for the scale of the effort you had made. You have sat in the offices of nutritionists and gastroenterologists and functional medicine practitioners who ran comprehensive panels and told you your numbers were within range. And you left those appointments holding a piece of paper that said you were fine, while your body was saying something entirely different. You carried that gap between the paper and the feeling alone, because explaining it out loud to someone who did not already understand it was its own kind of exhaustion. You have purchased the supplements, the probiotics, the digestive enzymes, the L-glutamine, the magnesium glycinate, the zinc carnosine, and some of them helped a little for a while until they didn't. You have tried fasting windows and food combining and eating for your blood type and eating for your microbiome. And with each protocol, you brought genuine sincerity, genuine hope, and genuine grief when the results did not hold. What I want you to hear, what this transmission is specifically constructed to deliver, is that every single one of those attempts was intelligent. Every one of them gave your system information it needed for the journey that brought you here. None of them failed you. You were building the map by walking terrain that required walking before the real coordinates could reveal themselves. The fact that you are here, receiving this transmission, is not evidence that you chose the wrong paths. It is evidence that you followed every path available to you at the frequency you were operating at then, and that you have now arrived at a threshold where a different kind of intelligence can finally be applied. Type 111 here. If you have ever left a medical appointment holding answers that did not match what your body was actually living, that is the dimensional gateway code. The signal that an inner door is opening, one that was sealed from within. You are not imagining what your body has been trying to tell you. I see the loneliness of sitting across from practitioners who are doing their best inside a framework that was not designed to account for what you are. I see the exhaustion of having to translate a felt experience into the clinical language of symptoms on a questionnaire that has no box for what you are actually experiencing. I see the quiet shame of wondering whether you are too sensitive, too attuned, too much, when in truth, your sensitivity is the precise instrument that has been trying to navigate you home this entire time. You are not broken. You were never broken. The written transmission linked in the description below, the integration guide that accompanies this series, was built for the period between transmissions, for the moments when the frequency begins to settle and the old patterns press back in. Use it as your field companion during the 72-hour integration window that follows this session. It holds what this spoken transmission cannot fully contain. Now, come with me into the body. If you are in a space where it is safe to do so, close your eyes or soften your gaze downward toward the floor. Bring one hand, your receiving hand, to rest gently over your solar plexus, the soft space just above your navel. Feel the warmth of your own palm meeting the warmth of your own field. Breathe in slowly through your nose, long, deeper than your chest. Let the breath expand your belly outward against your palm. Feel that expansion as your own awareness arriving at the gate of this center. Hold for a moment at the top of the breath, not forcefully, as if you are listening for something beneath the quiet. Now exhale through your mouth, slowly, without effort, a release rather than a push. Let the air carry what has been sitting at this gateway. Let it go without naming it. Again. Inhale. This time, imagine the breath arriving not only as air, but as frequency. As if the in-breath were calibrated to what sound healing traditions name as 528 Hertz, the resonance they associate with cellular coherence and renewal in the lineages this work is drawn from. Feel your solar plexus soften beneath your palm, not collapse. Soften. There is a difference. One is surrender and one is opening. This is opening. Your third energetic seal, the solar plexus gateway, is the seat of your intake intelligence. It is not only where you digest food, it is where you digest experience. It is where you decide, beneath the level of conscious thought, what is safe to receive and what must be held at the perimeter. And for many of you in this transmission, this gateway has been on guard for a very long time. Not because it is damaged, because it was doing its job in conditions that demanded constant vigilance. As you breathe, feel whether there is warmth beginning to move at the center of your palm. Some of you will feel this as a gentle tingling, some as a slow pulse. Some of you may notice moisture at the corners of your eyes. That is not sadness. That is frequency shifting. That is your field releasing a compression that has been held in this center, sometimes for years. Allow it without interpretation. You do not need to understand it. You only need to allow it. Breathe in once more. And with this breath, allow the visualization. A column of liquid platinum light descending from just above your crown, passing through the throat, pooling at the solar plexus beneath your hand. It is neither hot nor cold. It is precisely calibrated. It is what the Arcturian transmission names crystalline architecture. The coherent geometric light structure your light body was built to receive at this level of activation. Let that column rest there. Let this intake gateway soften around it, not reaching for it, not grasping, receiving. You do not need to do anything with this. You only need to receive. That is the sole instruction for this moment. Receive it. When you are ready, begin to deepen your breath again. Let awareness return gently to the room around you. Keep your hand on your solar plexus for one more full breath after your eyes open. The recalibration does not end when the eyes open. The integration continues into everything that follows. The next meal, the next choice, the next moment you pause before reaching for something out of habit. Now, what does a light body diet actually look like in this recalibration phase? Not as a prescription, as a frequency orientation. Your system is moving toward coherence, not volume. The quantity of food that satisfied you in previous years may no longer match what your field actually requires. This is not restriction. This is refinement. Your intake architecture is learning to extract more signal from less interference. Foods grown in living soil, wild, fermented, minimally processed, water-dense, carry a biophotonic charge that your morphogenetic field, in this phase of expansion, can use. Not because of their macronutrient profile, because of their information density, because they are coherent matter being offered to a coherence-seeking field. Eating in silence, without a screen in front of you, without a conversation layered over the signal, is not a wellness trend. It is a coherence practice. When the vagus nerve is not divided between the frequency of your food and the incoming data stream of content, the intake valve opens more fully. The neural pulse between gut and brain completes without interruption. What arrives in those moments of coherent eating is not only nourishment, it is data. Your body begins to distinguish again between what it needs and what it has learned to want, between what feeds the field and what only feeds the habit of feeding. The recalibration underway in the current galactic phase is not asking you to eat perfectly. It is asking you to eat with attention. To let your hand pause over the food and ask, not with your mind, but with your field. Is this coherence? Or is this comfort shaped like coherence? Your body knows the difference. It has always known the difference. The recalibration is simply returning you to the frequency at which that knowing is audible again after years of static. Type 888 below, the abundance frequency code, the signal of timeline convergence. If you are ready to allow your light body's intake intelligence to lead, rather than continuing to follow the frameworks built for a version of you that no longer fully exists, the Codex linked below this transmission holds the next layer of this work. The structured daily practices for the integration window, the coherence eating frameworks built for this phase, the specific somatic cues your body will use to signal readiness versus resistance as the recalibration continues. It was designed for the space between transmissions, for the hours and days when this frequency begins to settle into daily application. Use it as your anchor between sessions. You came here carrying a question you may not have fully been able to form in words. Something about why food has started to feel like a negotiation instead of a conversation. Something about why the old ways of feeding yourself no longer land with the same reliability, the same comfort, the same certainty. Something about whether you are changing or unwell or both. You are neither unwell nor lost. You are standing at the center of a threshold crossing that most frameworks do not yet have language for. The Arcturian pulse was built for exactly this. The moment between what you were eating for and what your light body is now asking to receive. The next transmission the Arcturian Council has prepared moves deeper into the architecture of this recalibration, into the role of structured water as a frequency carrier between the food and the field, and what the enteric system does with that information before a single nutrient is absorbed. If your body has been reaching for water in unusual amounts lately, or if plain water has begun to taste different, too flat, too sharp, wrong in a way you cannot name, that transmission was built for what you are already living. Watch for it. It is already prepared.